The grass should not be burning. There is no lightning, no campfire, no human for miles, yet a thin line of flame begins crawling across the dry ground. Then something lands beside it. A bird, not escaping the fire, not trapped by it, watching it. A few seconds later, the bird swoops down, grabs a smoldering stick with its beak and flies away. The burning branch falls nearly 30 meters ahead. Dry grass catches almost instantly. A second fire begins. To anyone seeing it, for the first time it looks impossible. Animals flee from fire. This one appears to spread it for generations. Aboriginal rangers in northern Australia have described birds carrying burning sticks from one wildfire to another. They claimed the birds did it on purpose, driving terrified insects, reptiles, and small mammals out of hiding before catching them in the open. For a long time, many outsiders dismissed these stories as myths. How could a wild bird understand fire well enough to use it? Could an animal really turn one of nature's most destructive forces into a hunting tool? The answer is more complicated than it first appears. And to understand it, we have to begin long before the first spark touches the ground. Northern Australia spends much of the year under an unforgiving sun. By the end of the dry season, grasses become brittle. Leaves curl into brown paper. Dead branches cover the woodland floor. Every step releases tiny clouds of dust. The landscape is waiting. Sometimes lightning provides the first flame, sometimes a fallen power line, sometimes a controlled cultural burn, carefully managed by indigenous communities. Whatever the source, once the wind rises, fire begins to move. It rarely travels as one giant wall. Instead, it advances in shifting fronts. Some areas burn intensely, others remain untouched. Between them lies a constantly changing boundary where life makes desperate decisions. Insects burst into the air. Grasshoppers leap blindly. Lizards abandon their burrows. Snakes glide through the smoke, searching for escape. Small mammals race toward any patch of unburned ground. For most predators, the chaos is overwhelming. For a few birds, it is an opportunity. Long before the flames arrive, dark shapes begin gathering overhead. Black kites, whistling kites, brown falcons, they circle quietly, watching every movement below. Their attention is not on the fire itself. It is on what the fire forces into the open. A mouse that would normally remain hidden beneath thick grass suddenly has nowhere to hide. A large grasshopper makes one desperate jump. A frightened lizard pauses for just a fraction of a second. That moment is enough. The birds dive with astonishing speed, turning panic into precision to an observer. It may seem as though the wildfire is feeding the hunters, but some witnesses notice something even stranger. Occasionally, one bird left the active fire. Not empty-beaked, it carried a smoking twig. The bird flew across a patch of already burned ground where there was little left to hunt. Then it dropped the burning branch into dry vegetation that had not yet caught fire. Minutes later, fresh flames appeared, and with them came another wave of fleeing prey. If true, this was not simply hunting near fire. It was changing where the fire went. That possibility transformed an unusual hunting behavior into one of the most controversial stories in animal behavior. Because using a tool is one thing, manipulating an entire wildfire is something else entirely. Stories about these birds did not begin with modern science. They were already part of indigenous knowledge long before researchers started asking the same questions. Across parts of northern Australia, Aboriginal fire practitioners passed down accounts of raptors appearing wherever controlled burns took place. The birds arrived quickly, sometimes before the flames had spread very far. They learned to recognize smoke as a signal. To them, smoke was not simply a sign of danger. It meant opportunity. Experienced land managers noticed that certain birds followed fire crews from one burn to the next, waiting patiently above the advancing edge. As insects, rodents, reptiles, and other small animals fled the heat, the birds descended with remarkable accuracy. This behavior is well documented. Wildfires and cultural burns often create brief moments when hidden prey suddenly becomes exposed. For a hunting bird, few situations are more rewarding, but alongside these widely observed hunting flights came another claim. Some witnesses reported seeing birds pick up burning or smoldering material and carry it beyond the active fire. The burning material was then said to ignite fresh patches of dry grass, creating another front that flushed more prey into the open. These reports appeared in oral histories, ranger observations, and later in interviews collected by researchers interested in traditional ecological knowledge. The descriptions came from different locations and from people separated by hundreds of kilometers. That consistency caught scientists' attention, yet consistency alone is not proof. Direct evidence is difficult to obtain. Wildfires are dangerous. Smoke limits visibility. Events unfold quickly across large landscapes. Even when researchers are present, recording every movement of fast-flying birds is extraordinarily difficult. As a result, one question remains unanswered. Are the birds intentionally transporting fire to improve hunting success, or are observers occasionally interpreting a rare accident as deliberate behavior? Scientists continue to investigate. Regardless of where that answer ultimately leads, there is no debate about one fact. These raptors have become specialists at reading fire. Long before flames reach the ground beneath them, they are already calculating where frightened animals will run. They do not chase the fire. They anticipate its movement. Wind direction matters. Vegetation density matters. Escape routes matter. Every shifting plume of smoke changes the pattern. To an inexperienced observer, the scene looks chaotic. To an experienced hunter, it is surprisingly predictable. One grasshopper launches too early. Another waits too long. A mouse chooses the wrong opening between two shrubs. Each tiny decision creates an opportunity lasting less than a second. The birds respond almost instantly. They bank into the wind, fold their wings, drop through the smoke, then climb back into the sky, carrying another meal. Again and again. Hours may pass this way. The fire advances. The birds follow. Not because they created the blaze, but because they have learned to understand it better than almost any other predator sharing the same landscape. Whether they also manipulate fire remains one of the most fascinating unanswered questions in animal behavior. Finding the answer will require far more than a single dramatic observation. It will require repeated evidence, careful documentation, and patient field research across many fire seasons. Until then, the mystery remains alive, and perhaps that mystery tells us something just as important. Nature often reveals its most extraordinary behaviors only in brief moments that disappear long before a camera can capture them. To understand why these birds are so closely tied to fire, we have to look at the world from the ground. Imagine being a small lizard hidden beneath dry grass. Your camouflage is nearly perfect. Most predators will never see you. Then the air begins to change. The smell of smoke arrives first. Moments later, the temperature rises. Tiny insects scatter in every direction. The ground vibrates as larger animals begin to run. Staying hidden is no longer an option. You move, and that single decision may determine whether you survive. For the raptors above, this is exactly the moment they have been waiting for. Unlike an eagle that relies on overwhelming power, these birds depend on timing. They do not need every animal to panic. They only need a few to hesitate. Every burst of movement stands out against the blackened earth. A mouse crossing open ground. A skink darting between patches of ash. A grasshopper launching into the air. Each movement is brief, but to a hunter with exceptional eyesight, it is enough. The birds rarely waste energy chasing prey through dense vegetation. Instead, they allow the fire to do what it has done for millions of years, reshape the landscape. Fire removes cover. Smoke limits escape routes. Heat forces hidden animals into the open. The birds simply position themselves where those escape routes are most likely to converge. It is less a frantic chase, and more an exercise in prediction. Researchers studying raptors have long recognized their remarkable visual abilities. From high above the ground, they can detect movements almost invisible to human observers. Combined with experience, that vision allows them to read patterns that seem chaotic to everything below. A shifting gust of wind, a line of taller grass, a fallen log that blocks one direction but opens another. All of these influence where frightened prey will run. The birds appear to learn these patterns over countless hunting opportunities. Young individuals are often less efficient. They arrive later, dive too early, miss prey that experienced adults capture with ease. Like many intelligent predators, success seems to improve through experience rather than instinct alone. This raises another fascinating possibility. If these birds truly do manipulate burning material, could that behavior also be learned? Some animal traditions spread not through genetics, but through observation. Young whales learn feeding techniques from older whales. Certain primates pass tool use skills across generations. Birds are already known for remarkable learning abilities. Crows shape hooks from twigs. Parrots solve complex puzzles. Some raptors even adjust their hunting methods depending on changing environments, if a fire-related behavior exists. Researchers suspect it may follow a similar path. Not every bird, not every fire, not every generation. Instead, a rare behavior practiced by a small number of experienced individuals and gradually copied by others. At present, however, this remains a hypothesis rather than an established conclusion. That distinction matters. Science advances by testing extraordinary claims with extraordinary evidence. The stories deserve careful investigation, not immediate acceptance, but not immediate dismissal either. Perhaps the most remarkable lesson is not whether these birds spread fire. It is how perfectly they have adapted to living beside it. While most creatures see only destruction, these hunters recognize opportunity hidden within the flames. For them, survival is not about resisting change. It is about understanding it before anyone else does. If the stories are true, then somewhere beyond the smoke, a bird releases a burning stick into dry grass. If they are not, then generations of experienced observers have witnessed something that still demands an explanation. Either way, the mystery refuses to disappear. For decades, researchers have returned to the same question. Not because they want to prove an extraordinary claim, but because nature has a habit of surprising us whenever we assume we have already seen everything. History is filled with behaviors once considered impossible. Birds that manufacture tools, fish that recognize human faces, octopuses carrying portable shelters across the ocean floor. Each discovery forced scientists to rethink the limits of animal intelligence. Perhaps the Firehawks belong on that list. Or perhaps the truth is even more interesting. Maybe these birds are not masters of fire. Maybe they are simply masters of opportunity. Every dry season transforms northern Australia into a constantly changing puzzle. Smoke rises, wind shifts, flames advance. Thousands of animals make split-second decisions above them. The raptors wait, not for chaos but for patterns. Whether they are following the fire, or, on rare occasions, influencing where it spreads, their greatest advantage is the same. They understand the landscape better than almost anything else flying above it. That understanding was not built in a single season. It is the product of countless hunts, countless failures, countless moments where experience became instinct. For the young birds, every wildfire is another lesson. Every missed strike teaches timing. Every successful dive reinforces patience. Every changing wind reveals another invisible rule written into the landscape. The fire itself is never the goal. Food is, and survival belongs to those that adapt faster than the world around them changes. Long before humans learned to study ecosystems with satellites and thermal cameras, the Australian bush had already become a classroom. Plants adapted to burn. Animals adapted to escape. Predators adapted to anticipate both, each species shaped by the same ancient cycle repeating year after year. Seen from above, a wildfire looks like destruction. Seen from within the ecosystem, it is also renewal. Fresh grass follows ash. Insects return. Small mammals recolonize. Life rebuilds itself with remarkable speed. The raptors know none of this in the way humans understand ecology. Yet their behavior reflects those rhythms with astonishing precision. They arrive when the opportunity begins. They leave when it ends. Nothing wasted. Nothing hunted without purpose. Perhaps that is the real lesson hidden inside the flames. Nature is rarely divided into simple categories of good or bad. Fire destroys. Fire renews. Predators kill. Predators also maintain balance. Every organism is responding to pressures that have shaped it over thousands of generations. The birds we call firehawks may never reveal all of their secrets. Future field studies may confirm some observations. Others may be revised or rejected. That is how science works. Every answer leads to better questions, and every mystery invites another expedition into the wild. So the next time smoke rises above a distant horizon, imagine the scene unfolding beneath it. Animals searching desperately for safety. Flames following the wind, and high above, sharp eyes watching every movement below. Not searching for the fire itself, but for the opportunity it creates. Sometimes, the most extraordinary stories in nature are not about creatures breaking the rules. They are about creatures understanding those rules more completely than we ever imagined.